I'm here with Chair Cedric Gates of the Culture, Arts, and International Affairs Committee for the House. From your perspective, Chair Gates, what were the challenges experienced by this artistic community, by these creative communities?
Yes, our arts, humanity, creativity, it's a billion-dollar industry in Hawaii because of the services they provide and the performances they provide for our community, especially with tourism, but also film industry and other forms of art has been basically decimated because everything was shut down. So our local uncle that goes out there to sing at a bar and all of those kind of things, all these gig workers, they weren't able to get any gigs. And so that was the reality of it. And so it was tough because a lot of the artists and gig workers weren't qualified for PUA and unemployment because of the type of work that they do, which is not as what we see in terms of employment. So I think that was one of the biggest things. And, our Medicaid, our food distributions, our the other funding that artists were able to receive were lifelines for a lot of these folks and their families. And so I think really finding ways to work with them to understand it deeper and turning that into ways that we can improve moving forward in case the next pandemic hits and we have to deal with something very similar. That's something that we're committed to doing.
So talking about lifelines, all of these government programs that really provided necessities, access to healthcare, access to food resources, to those who could qualify, unemployment benefits. We're seeing a lot of resources also coming down from the federal government. Can you speak to any of those federal relief programs that are coming down for arts organizations?
Yeah, so we have been fortunate enough to receive almost $800,000 through the National Endowment on Arts. That just came down recently. And then the shuttered venues program that they released also through the CARES funding was about $15 billion aimed at helping those that had shut down during this pandemic to kind of stand themselves back up and get restarted, hiring employees and so forth, and hopefully getting the equipment and infrastructure they need to reopen. And so that's going to be huge. My hope is that museums like Bishop Museum and the Hawaii State Art Museum, performance venues like Hawaii Theater, and organizations like the Hawaii Symphony or Hawaii Opera Theater and Ballet Hawaii even our hula halaus may qualify to get some of these fundings through the grants that they have on the federal level. So I'm hoping that will help us recover and get them back to where they need to be so that we can support these organizations as well as the individuals running them and providing the art and performance for these organizations.
So while the pandemic was really devastating for so many in our community, especially our artistic community, there is a silver lining. And I was very encouraged to see that within the arts community, there's been some organization. They realize how vulnerable they are. You're kind of part of an effort. Can we shift to what are you going to be working on during the interim to assist the arts community?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So this year we introduced the resolution to create a task force to look at the struggles that our creatives have been going through as of lately, as well as ways that we can help bring them back to where they need to be and provide them the support, as well as look at legislation to introduce for 2022. And I'm hoping that through this group of individuals and educated folks that we can really come up with ways that we can really look at how this should never happen again and how we can kind of encourage the state to provide more support. And that's what it all comes down to. You hear it a lot, it's really the funding aspect of it that really needs to be worked on, but also looking at ways if there's legislation that we could be changing. This year, we did introduce a bill to support performing arts and provide some funding through the state foundation to help with getting them back to where they need to be as well. So we're going to be looking at how to solve the problems and then present the solutions for the problems. We have DBED involved. We have the Department of Labor involved. We have the Hawaii Art Alliance and other groups from different islands involved, so that there's representation from the neighbor islands also on the task force. We have the Royal Hawaiian Band involved. So there's a lot of different moving pieces that I hope that when we all get together, we can kind of discuss the ways that we can move forward. And that's the exciting part for me. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of that.
And I love the name of the task force. It's a Creative Resurgence Task Force. I think, again, this speaks to the opportunities and the innovation of the creative community.
Correct. And, you know, I one of the things that really hit home for me was that I was talking with Terry from the Hawaii Art Alliance, and she really stressed to me about how art and music and all of the different things that come with art and creativity was like a second responder to the crisis. You know, we have our first responders, our healthcare workers, our grocery store workers, and those that are essential to the functioning of everything that our government does as well. But our second responders are those that uplift us while we're feeling down and out, and they encourage us to be motivated to wake up the next day and go out there to make change. And I think that was something that hit home for me, because during the pandemic, that's kind of all we had, right? Was Netflix, music, YouTube, like all of that, I think encompasses what they provide for our state and provide for everyone else that's outside of our state as well, because we had like Netflix specials being shot in Hawaii. We had all this great stuff going on, and I really think that's something that we can kind of harp on and try to build up, because a second responder is kind of cool, and I think it rings true, because if I didn't have that, you know, I think I would be in a worse off place. So I just want to shout out to all of our creatives for all the great work that they do, our local artists that are continuing to push out great music during these difficult times. So that's big.
You know, I think you leading the Culture and Arts Committee is going to provide a lot of hope. So I'm excited about the work that you're going to be doing, Chair Gates. Unfortunately, I'd love to keep talking about art. I could talk about this all day, but unfortunately, we have to wrap up. So I just want to close with, you know, arts and creativity clearly makes us stronger as individuals, families, communities, states, and as a country. The Hawaii State House is committed to helping support all sectors of our economy and really bringing back our economy. And in one way we're going to do that is through the economic diversification, clearly through the creative community. Thank you all for joining us on this week's episode of Talk Story with House Majority. Our next episode, our final one for the season, will be on April 30th, and will be the last episode of our regular season, regular legislative session right after adjournment sine die. I hope you can join us. And until then, please stay safe. Please social distance, wear your mask, and spread aloha and not COVID. Aloha.
All right. Aloha.